Welcome back for part 2 of the Good Neighbors Getting It Done in Western New York Bipartisan Town Hall in East Aurora. Republican Jim King and Democrat Aaron Gies continue to thoughtfully answer your questions. I did put rough timing in the description for your search convenience.
The next question to you, Sue. As a veteran and a parent with 2 sons currently serving, what is your stance on the current DOD leadership?
I've never served, but I have also family members who are actively serving and family members who are veterans. Secretary Hegseth is probably the most unqualified Secretary of Defense that we've ever had. It's not rhetoric, it's not hyperbole. You can read the guy's CV against anybody else that's ever held the job, and it's obvious. Even if he had done no misconduct in office, which he has exposed defense secrets of the United States. He has perjured himself. He has involved himself in this immigration controversy, which he has no purview over as the Secretary of Defense. Just his history disqualifies him from being Secretary of Defense. And I think that there are actually several Republican senators who now regret their vote and have even stated that publicly, voting to confirm him. Okay, so that was the question, and that's how I feel about it.
Jim?
I never put on a uniform, but I did work in what Eisenhower classified as the military-industrial complex for a long time. During that time, I was intimately involved with soldiers and sailors and airmen. And I am deeply distressed by the attempts of our Secretary of Defense to honor his president's desire to bring the military under his purview, which it is, he's commander-in-chief, but to actually use them for civil operations is appalling. It's disastrous. It's wrong. It's not how our country was put together, for good reasons. We have to be very, very worried about the current circumstances. And impeaching Kristi Noem, impeaching the president, impeaching Hegseth, those are all reasonable things. He has put our people, our sailors, our airmen, literally at risk. Sources and methods are top secret. The reason they're top secret is because they can do severe damage to the forces of the United States. You can tell I'm emotional about this. It is a crime. It is a very serious crime. He's committed a very serious crime several times. He doesn't belong as Secretary of the Defense, let alone Secretary of War, which he's trying to claim himself to be. It's just terrible.
In keeping with the same, what will you do to restore the rules-based order that has protected the world since 1946?
We're in deep doo-doo. Our credibility is shot, and to rebuild credibility is a terrible, terribly hard thing to do. You can only do that with time and actions where you're actually doing stuff to help somebody else. The answer is one step at a time. It doesn't happen overnight. We have to honor our treaty obligations. We can't let the president say, "Oh, I'm not going to honor this treaty anymore." Congress approved those treaties. Those are the law of the land. We got to ask the courts to enforce them, and it's very tough to do if you don't have standing. So we have a political issue there, as well as a legislative issue in terms of how do we give people standing in order for the courts to take on some of these actions.
Remember I said that the point of accountability is to address the harms? That's not just about domestic issues. It's also about foreign policy. In order to address the harm that we've done to our relationship to our allies, we must hold Donald Trump accountable. It's not enough for him to be gone, for us to have new leadership. We must hold him accountable. Nicolas Sarkozy is in prison because he was corrupt. Silvio Berlusconi was convicted and went to prison because he was corrupt. Jair Bolsonaro is on trial for trying to do a coup, right? Real, powerful, populist democracies, top 10 economies hold their leaders accountable. It is not impossible. It is not unprecedented. It is actually fairly common. And in order to clear the bar of being a serious democracy, a serious competitor on the international stage, the United States must show that it can hold its leaders accountable. And I think we can do that.
I want to take on accountability. The Supreme Court's made it very difficult to hold a sitting president accountable. That decision will probably get modified as we go along. They probably regret it. But the fact is, right now, we can't hold him accountable until he's out of office. Then we can. And that's, we're going to have to do it. In the state courts, because he's broken a whole lot of state laws. In the federal courts, because he's broken federal laws. The question is there going to be another pardon of somebody who shouldn't be pardoned?
All right, we're going to move on a little bit to the economy. Aaron, how would you reform taxes to deal with economic anxiety?
Okay, so how would I reform the tax code to deal with economic anxiety? Okay. There's more we should be doing for working families directly. Expanding the child tax credit permanently is a no-brainer. It is a progressive tax. It leads to more of what we want, not less. It encourages people to do good things for their kids, to work. And so we should do that and eliminate childhood poverty. But the blinking red light in the U.S. tax code is that we've been transferring wealth to the top 1% for the last 50 years. Something like $50 trillion has been moved from the bottom 50% of the country to the very, very, very top. And they have now not only escaped from any concern about their lives, right, because they can buy islands and, but also escaped from accountability. Through their ability to influence elections, to have their companies regulated the way that they want them to be regulated. And we must, for the health of our democracy, but also for the health of our economy, for the real economy, right, for Main Street, for how people feel about their lives, whether they can afford to live. We must figure out a way to tax wealth in this country equitably. It's tough, as you all know, because the wealthy don't make most of their money from income. They don't make it from working. They make it from earning money on investments and borrowing off those earnings. But we can do it. Smart people can figure it out. California's trying to figure it out right now. And what's really lacking is the political will. Right? And right now you are seeing lots of candidates, especially but not only on the Democratic side, who are arguing in the midterms for 26 for this. And I count myself among them. We need a wealth tax in this country that helps to even the playing field. Not because it's bad to be rich, but because we want everybody to have a shot at a good life. And we've lost that now. We've got to get it back.
The wealth inequality is part of why so many of our younger friends and relatives are lacking hope. They don't have opportunity. And the fact that the people at the bottom can't see a way forward, don't have a real handle on this, is part of this concerted effort to say that you really don't matter. It's all about Wall Street and big banks and too big to fail, and the very wealthy buying elections. I said earlier that I was an Eisenhower, Nixon, moderate Republican. In that era, the progressive income tax had the wealthy essentially contributing well over 30% of the national income. We could reform, the income tax to help fix that problem. And we've got to get the very bottom of the income, the people who are poor, by definition. Part of that is a minimum wage that is a living wage. It allows a family to live, maybe not plush, but live without too much anxiety on the income of a single wage earner, something above poverty level. Those are things we could do that would get rid of a lot of the anxiety. There's always going to be anxiety about whether you have enough money. The question is, do you have enough money to live and be healthy? And we got to be able to make that happen for everybody.
How would you vote currently on the current spending bill that's now in the Senate? Is it worth the government to have a shutdown and not fund ICE as part of it?
I'm not a big fan of shutdowns. But Aaron was talking about protests a little earlier. This particular appropriation bill would only shut down a part of the government, not everybody. Is it a reasonable protest to put forward? It's not violent, except that it's going to hurt a bunch of people, but probably not ICE. But it'll make a statement. I'm ambivalent at the moment, but in general, I'm in favor of nonviolent protests, and that's another way of Congress standing up and doing something. So if the Dems have to make a statement to wake up the Republicans and just pull ICE out of that piece of the budget, fine. As it is, ICE is funded through 2027. They don't need this money. They will continue to operate. This is icing on the cake. It was a political move to put it in. It should be a political move to take it out.
Aaron?
So Jim's right, the measure that's before the Senate now is not like the big budget bill that we had in the summer. This is a series of appropriations bills, so this is where Congress goes back and spends the money that we said we were gonna spend in the summer. Discretionary spending, not mandatory spending. So Jim is right, the ICE's money was mandatory spending that was passed in the summer. An enormous amount of money, $150 billion, the size of the military of Israel's budget. That's what ICE has, and we're not going to take that away from them. It's already theirs, they have it. But one of those appropriations bills funds DHS, and there seems to be the will in Congress to hold up the vote on that bill, to filibuster it in the Senate so that it's not passed. So it wouldn't stop ICE and CBP from doing what they're doing now, but it would make things hard for the Department of Homeland Security and probably stop the TSA from doing their work for a while and other pieces of DHS. As I agree with Jim that's a worthwhile statement to make. It is worthwhile for people that believe in democracy and the rule of law, who respect the sanctity of human life, to try to stop them from doing what they're doing in whatever way that we can.
Are you in favor of expanding the Supreme Court to 13 justices?
Popularly known as court packing, right? The Constitution does not establish how many justices there are on the Supreme Court. As a remedy for the tilt of the court, I am more in favor of term limits and some kind of rotation on and off the court than I am with court packing, because I think that's easier to respond with tit for tat, left and right, and I think that could be unhealthy for the country.
No, I'm not in favor of court packing. I am in favor of impeaching at least one of those Supreme Court justices.
I'm going to move on to the environment a bit. Should Congress uphold the endangerment finding? Actually, why don't you come up to the mic?
It's been a foundation for many environmental laws protecting our air and protecting us from climate change. It's served as the stepping stone for so many laws that are reducing climate change and are being taken away now.
Jim will probably tell you that the EPA was put in place by Republicans, which he's right about, but they sure are working to dismantle it now. Some very important regulations have been rolled back in the Trump administration, like the endangerment finding, thank you for explaining, and like Chevron deference. The best way that we can attack this in New York probably is through our membership with the California Compact, whereby CARB has the ability to regulate more than the federal government does, independently of the federal government, and we can sort of opt in to their policies. We shouldn't be afraid of talking about this. It's obvious that air pollution has deleterious effects on human health. I mean, it's not just a matter of scientific proof, it's also a matter of common experience, right? If you live in a community with a lot of pollution, You know that the kids get asthma, right? And that people have strange tumors. And, you know, these issues are obvious to everyone, whatever your politics are. So I think it's a losing issue for them. And the near-term solution is pursuing regulation at a state level, you know, to protect our health.
States have a lot of power. The Constitution grants it to it. There are people in the administration who would like to deny states those powers. And yes, that's a great place to experiment with some of these laws. But the fact is, Congress can write laws exactly what they mean when they say endangerment. Just what the statistics have to be for this bad thing or that bad thing. And we ought to be insisting that Congress does that. We have a camp in the Adirondacks, and we see the real effects of invasive species in terms of our forests, which is a very important piece of why we have clean air. We have to look at the world as a system of systems, and that means we've got to understand the interactions among all of them, and that's why. And that's why we need legislation that makes it really clear what it means to be doing something that's affecting our lives and the lives of our kids.
It's a question about the growth of data centers and how will you make sure residents and small business owners aren't paying excessive rates?
If you haven't figured out your electric bill is going up, most of those charges are in transmission. Yeah, we're paying more for generation of electricity. That's true too, but the big increases are coming from delivering it to your home. We have to change regulations, and most of that stuff is done at the state level. There are some things that are done at the federal level in terms of interstate commerce, and we can regulate that, and we should. Deregulation of the electric industry is a failure. We have to. That experiment's been done. We have to fix it. Too much profit is being taken. When we grant a monopoly to somebody, when the government says, yes, you can be the sole provider of electricity or water or cable networks or something like that, government has an obligation to make sure that they don't do any harm. And the way they do that is with regulation. And the state regulators have to step up, and the federal regulators have to step up. That's the simple answer.
Okay. Jim's absolutely right. An important reason costs are going up right now is because of New York's need to invest in new transmission infrastructure. Our infrastructure is old and we can't deal with the demand anymore. If you live in an old house, you know that you don't have enough electrical outlets, right? The whole state has the same problem. But let's talk about data centers. I was really glad that was brought up. How many of you have heard of the Stamp data center in Genesee County? Just a few of you. Okay, I'm about to make the rest of this room really angry. So Genesee County spent $100 million to build a business park that is mostly unoccupied still. And they really want to occupy that business park. And one applicant is a data center. They are proposing to build a data center that will use as much power as Buffalo. And it will raise rates across Western New York. And it will provide, as recompense for that enormous draw on our resources, 100 crappy jobs. So that's $1 million a job, you guys. Do you think that's a good return on public investment? No. I don't either. I feel bad for the citizens of Genesee County. Now, this is not a done deal. The citizens of Genesee County are pretty angry about this. They do not want the IDA to go through with this deal. But this is a problem in the way that we've done government for 50 or 60 years. That is, we've developed this approach, I said it at the beginning, where we basically want to give money to big companies in hopes that if they take that public investment and they grow their companies, that they'll somehow make life better for us. And that's not always the case. In fact, everybody, it's not usually the case. It's hard to invest our tax dollars at the local level on stuff that works, like a small business that needs like $5,000 to get a new sign. It's hard because you have to do that as a federal government, millions of times to make a difference. And that's why we just give $100 million to the stamp data center. But that stuff, that small stuff, that works, that makes people's lives better, that improves local economies, that creates jobs. It rates way higher than big factories and data centers. And so that is what we have to get back to. That is what we need to do. And the left and right have failed at that, whether we call it trickle down or bailouts. It's a failure. We have to invest in each other again.
We can fix the data center problem by making them pay for their own infrastructure. That's how you get it off of the back of the people. That's the specifics, and that's part of regulation. Okay, make them pay for their own infrastructure. There's no reason why a data center can't pay for not only its own infrastructure in terms of the transmission lines, but also its own infrastructure in terms of the power generation. There's no reason why the average, that should be shared, that kind of cost should be shared among everybody else. But again, that's state level stuff.
Aaron, in terms of on the same vein of environment, there is talk of new nuclear power plant. And the questioner wants to find out how you feel about this. Would it be cost effective and safer than older plants? What are your opinions?
Hochul has said that there's going to be concrete proposals for several new nuclear power plants, and Dunkirk is one of the proposed locations. So her committee has not revealed what technology they are favoring. I'm guessing it's going to be molten salt. And if you haven't looked into it, the answer is yes, it would be safer. I don't know that it's entirely safe. Anytime there's radiation, there's a health risk, right? And we still don't have a plan for what to do with nuclear waste in this country. There's no long-term plan. It's just sitting right outside the plants. We're afraid to put it on rail cars to take it somewhere, and there's nowhere to take it because nobody wants it. Molten salt reactors are small. In theory, they're pretty cheap to build. There's only a couple of them that are actually in commission now. But we in the United States have not been good at building nuclear energy because everybody fights it, because it's dangerous and it's a long-term thing that we all have to deal with, right? So that raises the price. Solar power is cheaper than natural gas now. Come on. We can meet our needs without this.
The answer is renewables are the right answer. And the question is, can you have enough in the way of renewables to supply us when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow? And Niagara Falls is going to go on for a long time, but that's not enough. We need that. We need the powers. We need power generation, safe, clean. That is no fossil fuel stuff. We need power generation that is easily brought online very quickly when the sun isn't shining, and that's probably in the form of small plants, because you don't need huge plants. You don't need a 3 Mile Island, which Microsoft has bought for their data centers. That's how much power they take. We don't need that, but we do need small, distributed, clean nuclear power. It's demonstrated all over Europe. It's safe, and yes, it's got problems. It's got the cleanup problems in terms of what do you do with the waste. But more than that, what the federal government needs to do is to move ahead with the Manhattan-like project and bring fusion online. Fusion has been demonstrated scientifically, but not from an engineering standpoint. We've got experiments that show that you can generate more energy from fusion and take it out of the system. That's been demonstrated. The problem now is engineering, and it's a big engineering problem. And we'll get there. It's safer than fission. It doesn't have the issues with disposing of the waste, and it shuts down by itself. If the plant goes haywire, it's done. It just stops without the radiation issues. We've got to bring fusion online. And if the United States does that, we'll be way ahead of the rest of the world. Selling that technology abroad will make a big difference in terms of our credibility in the world.
Kathleen, oh, sorry.
Aaron wanted to
Yeah, I'd like to follow up. So Jim is absolutely right that we need energy for when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, and we will forever, right? So at the same time we want to roll out renewables quickly, we do have to think about that problem. So one solution to that, besides nuclear energy, is grid-scale batteries, not lithium-ion batteries, but things like superheated sand in a silo. That kind of stuff can heat a community overnight. All of that is pumped hydro, so batteries that don't look like batteries. But I wanted to tell you all about something that maybe you haven't heard about, and that is enhanced geothermal. So geothermal energy traditionally only works like when you're in Iceland and there's volcanoes everywhere, right? And you're close to the really hot stuff. Enhanced geothermal goes to the stuff that's just warm. It doesn't go all that deep. And geothermal, as you know, because the earth is always warm, it's never off. And once you've built it, it doesn't cost anything to run.
All right, we're going to wrap up with these two questions. The first is for Aaron. You're not a career politician. I think many people voted for Trump because he was not a career politician. How will that impact your decision if elected?
Right. So the important thing is I don't have a political career to protect or even political ambitions to protect. I've spent my career doing the things that congressmen do, but not as a congressman. So like when you work in a nonprofit or you're a professor, you fundraise, you do deep research, you public speak all the time, you answer questions, right? You travel, but I'm not a politician. So I'm prepared to do the job, right? But I don't have a deep psychological need to do the job. And so what that's going to enable me to do is be independent and represent you. And that is exactly what we don't have right now. Because whatever Donald Trump is, I'm not sure, Nick Langworthy is a career politician and nothing but a career politician. He's never been anything since college but a career politician. And I don't know what he would be if he weren't a politician anymore, but I would like to find out.
Jim, I have a different question for you. On your written advertisements, you sound like a very moderate Republican. Would you stand up to vote separately from the Trump supporters and stand your ground firmly, even in the face of hard pressure on important topics?
Yes.
It's a good wrap-up question. From my perspective, it's critically important to both candidates, cats or dogs.
Okay.
There's a great experiment going on in both.
What do cats and dogs like? Do they like geothermal? Is it cats or dogs?
Cats like warm.
Aaron?
Dogs if I'm walking around and cats if I'm sitting down.